20 Israeli fighter jets just blew up Houthi strongholds in Yemen. Cargo ships are sinking, missiles are flying toward Tel Aviv, and global trade is on the brink of chaos. Today, we're diving straight into the Red Sea danger zone to uncover how 2 explosions on Magic Seas and Eternity Sea triggered a chain reaction that could jack up prices on everything you buy. Let's rewind the chaos and break it down step by step. Over the past few weeks, things have gotten really tense in the Red Sea. The Houthis, an armed rebel group based in Yemen, have been attacking ships that are passing through the area. 2 ships in particular made headlines, one called Magic Seas and the other Eternity Sea. Both were commercial cargo ships. The Houthis didn't just fire warning shots. They used rocket launchers, boarded the ships with weapons, and even planted explosives. These were full-on attacks. The Magic Seas was hit first, and after some intense damage, it ended up sinking. A few days later, the Eternity Sea was targeted. This one was even worse. 3 crew members died during the attack. These were the first major maritime deaths caused by Houthi attacks since December 2024. Now, you might be wondering, why were the Houthis attacking ships in the first place? Well, it's part of a bigger conflict. The Houthis support Hamas, the Palestinian group, currently at war with Israel. So they started targeting international ships, especially those linked to Israel or its allies, as a way to put pressure on Israel and make a global statement. Their message was pretty clear. We're going to disrupt your economy and shipping routes until you stop attacking Gaza. But instead of stopping, Israel decided to hit back, and hard. On the morning of July 7, 2025, Israel carried out a major military operation in Yemen. According to reports, around 20 Israeli fighter jets were sent in for the mission. The targets were very specific: the ports of Hodeidah, Ras Isa, and Salif, all key areas under Houthi control. These ports are important because they're believed to be used for importing weapons and fuel. In addition to the ports, Israel also targeted a power plant at Ras Kontib, which supplies electricity to those areas. And finally, one of the most surprising strikes was on a seas ship called the Galaxy Leader. This ship had been captured by the Houthis months ago and was being used as a floating base or radar station. Israel saw it as a threat and hit it directly. The Israeli military said the goal of the strike was to stop further attacks on commercial ships and protect freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. They also issued warnings to civilians in those areas before launching the strikes, saying they wanted to avoid unnecessary casualties. But of course, any military action like this comes with consequences. Right after the airstrikes, the Houthis responded by launching missiles and drones toward Israel. Some of those were shot down by Israel's air defense system, like the Iron Dome, but others may have landed, although there are no official reports of serious damage or casualties on the Israeli side. Still, it's a sign that the Houthis are not backing down. They released statements calling Israel's actions aggressive and illegal, and they warned that more retaliation is coming. Both sides are now locked in a dangerous game of back and forth. The Houthis are continuing to threaten ships in the Red Sea, and Israel has made it clear that they will keep responding if needed. Now, you might be asking, why is this all happening now? Why did Israel decide to strike the Houthis in Yemen all of a sudden? Well, it's not actually sudden. If you look closely at what's been happening over the past couple of months, it's clear that the tension has been slowly building up. Let's start with the timeline. On May 5th and 6th, Israel launched airstrikes on Hodeidah and Sana'a airport. That was after the Houthis fired a missile near Tel Aviv, which set off alarms across the country. This was a big deal because it showed the Houthis had the ability to strike much deeper into Israeli territory than before. The very next day, Israel responded with a powerful airstrike, basically saying, don't even think about trying that again. Then on June 10th, Israel took things up a notch. They didn't just use aircraft. This time, the Israeli Navy shelled Hodeidah directly from the sea. That marked a shift in tactics, from just airstrikes to using warships as well. And just a few days later, on June 14th, Israel went even further. They launched a precision strike targeting Houthi leadership in Sana'a, Yemen's capital. It was clear by then that Israel wasn't just hitting ports or weapons. It was going after the people in charge. So yeah, this wasn't random. It was a slow and steady buildup. First missiles near Tel Aviv, then airstrikes, then naval attacks, and finally, strikes on Houthi leadership. It shows that Israel is now treating the Houthis as a serious threat, not just some distant rebel group, but as a direct part of the wider war in the region. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. This isn't just about Israel and the Houthis. It's also about the Gaza war. Ever since the conflict between Israel and Hamas restarted, Other groups in the Middle East have gotten involved, especially those backed by Iran. And the Houthis are one of Iran's closest allies. They've made it clear that they support Hamas, and they've been attacking ships in the Red Sea to try and hurt Israel's economy. This is where it gets more serious. Iran is believed to be supplying weapons and logistics to the Houthis through Yemeni ports. These ports are being used not just for shipping, but possibly to smuggle in advanced missiles and drones. That's why Israel decided to strike them. From Israel's point of view, this is about cutting off the supply line, stopping Iran from using the Houthis as a weapon against them. It's not just revenge, it's strategy. And then there's the money side of all this. The Red Sea is one of the most important trade routes in the world. A huge percentage of global shipping passes through it every day. When the Houthis attack ships, it causes delays, reroutes, and panic in the shipping industry. Insurance costs for these routes go up. Companies start losing money. Prices of goods start rising. Everyone gets affected, whether you're in Europe, Asia, or even India. Israel knows this. So part of its response is also economic. By attacking the ports the Houthis use, Israel is sending a message. If you mess with global trade, we'll make sure you pay for it. It's not just about protecting themselves anymore, it's about protecting global stability. Places, they were carefully chosen targets that play a major role in how the Houthis operate. Each location has strategic importance, either for war supplies, logistics, or military operations. Let's break them down, one by one. The first major target was Hodeida. This is one of the biggest and most important ports in Yemen. Think of it like the main gate through which the Houthis bring in weapons, fuel, and other supplies. It's also used for regular shipping, but in this conflict, it's been used a lot for military purposes. Israel knew this, so they dropped multiple bombs and missiles on different parts of the Hodeida port. The goal was to completely disrupt how the Houthis bring in supplies. According to reports, the damage was massive. Storage areas, cranes, and even docked vessels were hit. After the attack, the port was basically shut down, at least for a while. That's a huge blow to the Houthis because it cuts off a big part of their supply chain. Next up were the ports of Ras Isa and Salif. These two places are known for oil and fuel storage. Yemen has a few key locations where oil is either refined or stored before being moved. Ras Isa is especially important because it's close to pipelines and fuel facilities. The Salif port is also a transit point for cargo, and both locations have been under Houthi control for a long time. By targeting these areas, Israel wasn't just going after oil. It was attacking the fuel system that keeps the Houthi vehicles, boats, and even drones running. Without fuel, their operations slow down fast. So these were smart targets aimed at weakening their power from the inside. Then there's the Ras Qantib power plant. This might seem like an odd choice at first. Why hit a power station? But here's the thing. This plant provides electricity to many of the port facilities nearby. That includes light, communication systems, refueling stations, and loading equipment. If you knock out the power, everything connected to it slows down or stops. Israel likely saw this as a way to choke the Houthis' ability to recover quickly. Without power, it becomes harder for them to restart operations, fix damaged areas, or move weapons around. One of the most surprising targets was a ship called the Galaxy Leader. This was a cargo ship that was hijacked by the Houthis way back in November 2023. Since then, they've been using it like a floating base, possibly for surveillance, communication, or even launching drones. Israel targeted this ship during the latest attack. Hitting it was not just symbolic, it was strategic. Taking out the Galaxy Leader weakens the Houthis' ability to monitor the area and launch attacks. It was like cutting off their eyes and ears in the water. Now let's talk about something really serious: civilian safety. Before launching the attacks, Israel reportedly sent out evacuation warnings to people living near the ports. They said the strikes were aimed at military infrastructure, not civilians. But the Houthis and some local media claimed that some civilian areas were hit too. They said homes, markets, and nearby buildings were damaged. Yemen is already a war-torn country, and this only makes things worse. There are humanitarian groups now warning that destroying port infrastructure could limit food and medicine supplies for ordinary people. After Israel launched those massive airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, the response from the Houthis came pretty quickly, and it was intense. Within hours, the Houthis fired multiple missiles and sent drones directly toward Israel. Some of those missiles were stopped in the air by Israel's defense systems like the Iron Dome, but a few still managed to get through. Reports say that at least 1 or 2 missiles actually made it into Israeli airspace. Luckily, there were no major casualties, but this showed that the Houthis still have long-range weapons and are very much capable of striking back, even from hundreds of kilometers away. The Houthi media also started releasing bold statements. They framed their actions as part of a solidarity mission to support Palestinians and Hamas. According to them, the strikes from Israel were acts of aggression, and they were simply defending their region and their beliefs. They promised that the attacks would continue and that Israel would face more consequences if they kept targeting Yemeni infrastructure. So basically, they're not backing down. If anything, they're using this moment to gain more attention and support from other anti-Israel groups in the region. Now let's talk about Iran. This is where things start connecting on a much bigger level. The Houthis have always had strong ties to Iran. Iran is known to give them weapons, training, and financial support. Some people even say that without Iran's help, the Houthis wouldn't have nearly the same power they do today. That's why when Israel talks about fighting the Houthis, they also bring up Iran. In fact, after the recent attacks, Israeli officials publicly said they were not just targeting the Houthis, they were going after Iranian terror masters who they claim are behind all of this. This brings up a major issue. Iran's involvement could pull more countries into the conflict. If Israel keeps targeting Iranian proxies like the Houthis, Iran might respond directly or push other groups like Hezbollah to take action. This could mess up current peace talks between Iran and the US as well. The US has been trying to calm things down in the region, especially after the whole Gaza war started. But now, with Israel striking the Houthis and calling out Iran, those diplomatic efforts could fall apart quickly. Speaking of the US, they've been watching all of this very closely. America has always had a strong presence in the Red Sea and the Middle East. Along with NATO, the US may even restart maritime security missions to protect international shipping from more Houthi attacks. That's because these attacks aren't just affecting Israel, they're messing with global trade routes. Ships from all over the world use the Red Sea to move goods, and when it becomes a war zone, everybody gets nervous. What's interesting is that, just recently, the US had paused its own strikes in Yemen. Under Trump's current administration, they decided to hold back military action as long as there was some progress toward a ceasefire in Gaza. But now that Israel has taken things into its own hands, it raises a big question. Does this break the fragile peace that was being built? Or does it just show that the rules don't really apply when countries feel threatened? So, after everything that's happened, the airstrikes, the ship attacks, the missile launches, everyone's wondering, what comes next? Are things going to cool down? Or are we about to see an even bigger mess in the Middle East? Sadly, the answer leans more toward the second option, escalation. Let's start with what Israel might do. The country's foreign minister, Israel Katz, has already warned that more military action could be on the way. He said that Israel will continue to strike back if the Houthis keep threatening ships or launching attacks. So, it's safe to say that this wasn't just a one-time thing. If the Houthis try anything again, which seems likely, Israel will probably respond with more airstrikes or even use its navy and drones. Basically, this fight is far from over. Now let's talk about the United States. Even though the US hasn't been directly involved in these latest Israeli strikes, they're definitely paying attention. If things get worse, America might step back in with military support, maybe by sending more ships to protect cargo vessels in the Red Sea, or even using air power to help Israel. The US has done this kind of thing before, especially when global trade routes are under threat. And they're not the only ones thinking about jumping in. Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE might also get involved, especially if the conflict spreads closer to their borders or hurts their oil exports. But while countries are planning military options, there's another crisis unfolding, and it's humanitarian. Yemen has already been one of the hardest hit countries in the world. Years of war, famine, and disease have made life horrible for millions of people. Now, with Israel bombing major ports and power plants, things are getting even worse. These ports weren't just used for war supplies, they were also where food, medicine, and aid came in. If the ports stay closed or damaged, ordinary people will suffer the most. There could be food shortages, hospital shutdowns, and more people forced to flee their homes. That's why some human rights groups are already calling for investigations. They're asking whether Israel's attacks could be considered war crimes if they hurt too many civilians or destroy essential infrastructure. On the diplomacy side, things don't look good either. There's almost no chance of a ceasefire between Israel and the Houthis anytime soon. The two sides don't even recognize each other formally, and they have zero trust. Plus, since the Houthis are backed by Iran, any talk of peace becomes more complicated.